Cinema back. Another dish. How we doing out there? Good, great, grand, and wonderful. Yep, energy levels low. And that's why. Normally, if obligation didn't exist, I sure as fuck would not be sitting down to do this show right now, but obligation calls, and this isn't Michael Jordan physical shit, this is just talking. Problem is, you could make the correlation between me and Michael Jordan. I said it. I don't mean it, but I said it. Only, like, I need my voice to talk, right? To entertain you. And, well, throat's killing me, so... but I'm showing up. I'm going to put forth an effort because, A, like I said, obligation, and B, all it is talking, even though we're not even 2 minutes into this motherfucker, and my throat is already, it feels so raw, dude. I don't know what happened. Like, the last 5 days for me have just been, well, didn't see a lot of it coming. I took a mini vacay from my day job, and I was supposed to be on multiple lakes for the 4th of July weekend. First, I'm not a big patriot, so it's not like, America the 4th. I'm not. That's not me. Probably the exact opposite, actually. But I usually am on a lake for the 4th, or at least, the day before the 4th or the day after. Usually I'm lake bound for the 4th of July holiday. I'm fortunate enough that I have some lakes that I can go to, and it's at on a time when everybody goes to be at the lake. So, and all of that fell through. I had 4 plans for my mini vacay, and only one didn't fall through. And then on the 4th, I was supposed to be on a lake, and when that fell through, I was like, well, again, not out of patriotism, but more just kind of like sharing the vibe. Found something else to do, and I went over to my buddy's house, and he grilled out, and we sat poolside and everything, had some people over. And it was a fine time and everything. The following morning, though, I woke up and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I could just tell, like, my throat, I was coughing up, fluorescent green phlegm, and I was just like, what the fuck, dude? It's been like 92 degrees out. It can't be a goddamn cold. And the only thing I can think of is that maybe my buddy's dog gave me the COVID. I had nothing to support this theory, but like I felt okay on the day of the 4th, and then the 5th I was a shell of my former self. And the only thing that I can remember doing, touching, whatever, the day before is his dog kissed me, I don't know, 20 times, because I'm an animal lover, and that's the only thing I can think of, or I don't know, or I just don't fucking know what happened. But I do not feel great. Better than yesterday, where I barely moved, and it was like one of those types of sicknesses where, like, I mean, for me, it always seems like the sickness is the same, where, you just can't do shit no matter how much you want to. Like, I'm sitting there trying to watch new stuff, and it's hard for me to pay attention, whether it's the Dayquil or... I fucking hate Dayquil. I just want to make that clear. Like, I know it helps you out and stuff, but I hate how it makes me feel. It makes me feel all dried up, and like my fucking... I can't stand it. So anyway, I'm trying to watch shit under that umbrella, and I'm sure the pieces that I watched how I received them. Probably wasn't the best way that I could have received them, but, fucking here we are. Out of the 3 I watched, though, I didn't mind this one. As you see on your dial or screen, or however you are joining me today, when a reckless young gambler's wild lifestyle of illegal betting, drag racing, and brutal street fights pits him against a ruthless criminal enterprise, his luck finally runs out. The gang shows up at his father's home to collect the debt, forcing his family to fight in order to save their land and their life. Pretty, movie's called Silat Warriors, by the way. Deed of Death. Silat Warriors, Deed of Death, a.k.a. Geran. Geran. Or Geran. It is a Malaysian action film from, near as I can figure it, first time everything. First time director, first time producer, first time cinematographer. Areel Bakar is who did Silat Warriors. And if this was his 7th film, I would probably be taking him down a peg. Just because... I'm not going to say I'm a fucking genius or professional, but if you had to ask me what genre of movie I've watched the most in the past decade, unequivocally my answer would be foreign action films. Specifically foreign action films. Like in the States, I try to watch whatever we have to offer. It's not like I only watch, Bad Boys and Mission Impossible. It just so happens that I've been watching a lot of foreign action films lately, I don't skip out on the Judas and the Black Messiahs and the Minaris and the Nomadlands. Come on. That's people come in second and third place. There are no second place trophies on my shelf. Actually, there's quite a few. Anyway, If this was his 7th film, his 6th, 7th film, I would take issue with some of the things. And just so we're clear, if anybody who made the film, cast or crew alike, is listening to this, it's gonna sound like I'm being negative, and I'm really not. Keep in mind, my disclaimer is if this was his 6th or 7th film rather than his first. I think in terms of a first time showing, Areel checked every box that you need to make an action film. Silat Warriors stars Namron, who is pretty big across seas. I'm sick, and my brain is fucking mush from the Dayquil, because it just makes me feel so weird. Namron plays Paknayan. Khoharullah. Majid plays Ali. Feiyna Tajudin plays Fatima. Fad Anuar plays Matarip. Matarip, even though, like, when I was listening, I tell you what, we just got to get better at translating the stuff that comes across seas into the West, because I know how it reads on the page, but when you hear it said out loud, it just doesn't... in I would say half the cases, it doesn't fucking feel close at all. Yep, that's what they want to hear, Sean. They want to hear you fucking cough into the microphone. You got Azian Komeng, who plays Kahar. You got Salahuddin Abu Bakar, who I just assume is a family member of Areel. Music by Bachai, which is weird because if you look at the back of the Welgo USA Blu-ray release on IMDb, music by Bajai, Bajai. On the back of the Welgo, this is that fucking translation that I'm talking about. On the back of the Welgo USA Entertainment Blu-ray, music composer, Sci-Fi Studio. Yep. I never know who's telling me the truth anymore. What's real? I don't know. But like I said, you got Namron, Khoharullah, Khoharullah, damn it, Feiyna, Tajudin, Fad Anuar, and many, many more. It is a good action film. It's a really good action film if we're speaking strictly for the action sequences. We live in a time now. I mean, I do a podcast, so I mean, there is some sort of critique that comes along with this, but like Kyle Brule from I Know Movies and You Don't has said on this show several times, sometimes we nitpick things just solely because they exist, and it's going to kind of feel that way a little bit here, but I promise you, filmmakers, the people that made Geran, Silat Warriors, Deed of Death, take it with a grain of salt, because I've told you multiple things. Now granted, it's all been fucking a mess because my brain is tapped out, and I don't want to be here right now. I want to review this film, but I don't want to be doing it right now. And I just have to. But like a lot of the things that I've already said, like if this was his 7th film, I probably wouldn't be so kind. But the fact that this is his first film, and I almost look at this film as almost like a resume piece, like look what I can do. For instance, it is, I'm sure on paper at least, it's easier and safer to do hand-to-hand combat fights, but once you start bringing in vehicles and explosions and guns and all that shit, that's when it gets a little tedious in terms of rules and regulations and how you're going to shoot it, and what's going to be the most financial savvy decision for your buck. That's kind of how this movie plays to me. It's like for instance, the drag race sequences. They're not Fast and the Furious type. And just so we're clear, Areel, if you're listening to this right now, I hate that shit. I'm not a Fast and the Furious guy. I don't mind explosions and car chases and everything, but it's really got to be motivated by the plot and da 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 da. I think that he did well at show. I mean, because keep in mind, this dude, Areel Abu Bakar, is doing all. He's wearing a lot of hats in this one. Very, if we're going to use something recent, very Edward Norton, Motherless Brooklyn-esque, minus the cinematography portion. And I would argue that being a cinematographer on an action film that has a lot of hand-to-hand combat fights, you best be prepared, boy. Otherwise, audience will see right through you and say, fuck you. This is just a stunt reel. In fact, I think I was sometime, and there's a few parts that are like this. So my issue with it stems from just my particular writing style. Now, here's the thing. Audience and people who worked on this film, don't listen. I mean, you can listen to me if you want to, but this is coming from a failed screenwriter. I haven't sold anything yet, so as far as I'm concerned, Areel has already destroyed fuck's sake, destroyed me in that regard. But if I were the writer, if I were the armchair critic, which that's about all you can say that I am, is the armchair critic, I just would have tweaked some certain things. Like I mentioned in the sorry guys, if I don't take a pull of water oh, fuck's sake. Oh, that's good. If I was the writer, so I mentioned that his family, so without ruining anything, we'll just say that Matarip is one of the black sheep of the family. He's always doing dumb shit, placing bets, and that is, ass can't cash. In this particular time, he puts up the family's land as collateral and, of course, loses the bet. So now the criminal lord, the crime lord, Jesus Christ, he wants what's owed, and it says his family has to fight in order to save their land. Well, I just would have went, if I was the writer, I just would have went a little bit harder on the family stuff. And if you held a gun to my head right now, okay, what would you have changed? Man, that's a tough question, because I do feel that if you were going to execute the story the way that you did, I think all the characters got their time. I just don't think that the dialogue that they were given gave us the character arc which is needed in a ensemble piece where you have, in this particular case, there's 4 in the family, and each of them plays a pretty heavy role. And so I just would have went a little bit more. I would have been a little bit more thorough in that aspect. And again, I'm a failed writer, and I fucking, I'm a toxic white male. But speaking of toxic white male, something that is the antithesis of that, I got to be honest. One of my biggest negatives on this film is an extremely selfish one, and it is because I didn't get to see Feiyna, Tajudin, kick more ass. She was, at least how her sequences, she plays Fatima. She is she is the daughter of Pak, the father who owns the land. And dude, there's a sequence where the gang shows up like, hey, where's Matarip? He's got a debt to pay. And she's cold-blooded, man. And that sequence is so sharp. And I just, for the record, so Silat, if you guys don't know, is a mixed martial art, much like karate or taekwondo or whatever. Silat is its own thing. Boy, does Silat look good on film. If shot right, looks really good. And then if you add, little details where you're putting powder on the stuntmen or actors or actresses to show tagging. What is tagging? It means, so because across seas they throw real kicks and punches. They don't do that in the States here. And what the powder does and what tagging is, so if somebody throws a kick and they hit them in the face, or a punch and they hit them in the face, they'll put a little powder on there so you can see that the impact is actually happening, which obviously is it's more realistic for me. And I hear the argument where it's like, well, I see powder flying off these people. It's not realistic to me. And it's like, okay, well, if you want to watch a real fight, then you got to watch UFC, or boxing or whatever. But when we come to see cinematic excellence, if anything else, it just shows me that they're willing to go a little bit farther in the East than we are in the West. But to that point, all the sequences that are hand-to-hand combat in this are really strong. I mean, I've been saying it for years now. That the East have figured out the way to do small action sequences, and it doesn't even need to be when I say that, don't think small budget films. They just know how to do a much more intimate fight sequence, whether it be hand to hand, knife, whatever, than America does. They're not known for their big drawn out, especially like China. I almost feel like China kind of phones in their big action ensembles, whether they just I don't know if it's like a licensing thing or if it's a time thing, but you look at some of the CG used here, and obviously, I'm a big hater of CG, but I'm also a cinephile and a realist, and I understand that sometimes it needs to happen. It's like if you listen to my Those Who Wish Me Dead podcast, like, does it look annoying that the entire forest is on fire with CG fire? Yeah, it does. But I'm Earthboy. Do I really want someone to burn down, 5-10% of a forest for a movie? No, I don't. So, I'm a realist. circling back, it's just I almost feel like the East sometimes phones in CG action sequences. Not that you have to worry about in this piece. You have to worry about it in this piece, Silat Warriors. You don't, but it's anytime you can take out CG and you put in something like you do see in Silat Warriors, like even if it's a brief hand-to-hand combat to motivate the story, I don't know. I just think it pays dividends as opposed to if you don't. So, but overall, the movie's pretty sharp. I like the story. I've said it on this show before. I'll say it again. I don't mind if I watch a story that I've seen 50 times. Doesn't bother me. Execution is everything, and obviously, a son selling the land that's not his and the family's going to go under without the land. This is not new stuff. This is not, for action films and films in general, it can mean this is a premise for a drama. This is a premise, execution is everything. And I think the execution was fine here. I really do. I think I'll say it for a second time. My issues with it are very selfish and also financially driven. The stuff that I would have went another step on, you would have needed more money for that. And like I said, he's a first-time filmmaker, and it looks what it appears like when you try to do as much research as you can about this. But as I've mentioned on this show before, sometimes it's really hard, and you get a lot of conflicting information in terms of the how, the who, and the what. And from the aspect of a first-time filmmaker, goddamn, dude, Areel knocked it out of the park. And so, even though the dialogue isn't, in an abundance, it's not like you're sitting down to watch a Tarantino film or anything like that. I do think that the dialogue that was written works for the story. I just selfishly would have took it a step further. I would have kind of interchanged some sequences. For instance, I probably would have done without one less drag race and one less underground fighting, and I would have utilized some time elsewhere. And actually, to that point, it would have been cheaper too. Like whenever I write these days, and it does hinder my writing a little bit. I think when you aren't accomplished as a writer, you always write with a budget in mind. It cannot be avoided. If you, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that would say, I never write for a budget, and that's fine. You've probably sold stuff. I haven't. But you write things for a budget. So I would have saved money, actually, on subtracting one of the drag race sequences, and I would have filled it in with talking heads. I would have had the family. You care a little bit more about the family, and same with another one of the underground fighting sequences. I almost feel to an extent we leaned on the underground fight sequences to pass the time. So what I mean by that is we do see a couple of our characters at the underground fighting ring, and they are placing bets on these fighters, but the focus is more on what they're doing in the ring. Like, it's kind of just like, look at how well we filmed this Silat action sequence, as opposed to what I think the motivation or concentration should have been is more about the main characters placing another stupid bet that's going to get them in trouble. And this does happen, okay, just to be clear. A real Bakar does do this. I just think that tonally we could have made a shift. Like, instead of it being more like, check out this cool action sequence, we perhaps should have leaned more towards, can you believe these characters are doing the same shit? And that's, circling back, that's, again, now I'm caring more about the characters, because towards the end of the film, I had kind of had it with Areel making dumb decisions, and we kind of shift focus to one of the brothers, and I'm just kind of like, okay, but you understand that we're in Act 3 now, and you're asking us to shift our care to a different character, and it's not like that it isn't set up in the beginning. In fact, one of the main, again, no spoilers, but one of the main fights that happens, there is a locking of eyes with the two characters earlier in the film. But the fact of the matter is, we follow Matarip more than we do Ali. Ali, who ends up in the final showdown, we kind of just we keep glancing at him throughout the film, like we're just like, oh, Ali, you are a character. You are one of the brothers that cares about the family. But it's not very explicit in he is going to take the story and run with it. So and that's kind of confusing. And here's the thing, Areel, if you're listening, or any of the actors, actresses, who's to say that I got to see your actual cut of the film? You know, I've said this about foreign action, just foreign films in general. I feel like we cut these things down and we dumb it down to an American audience, and the product itself suffers. And that's not fair to the filmmakers. That's not fair to the cast. And then ultimately we have this just wrong assumption about foreign filmmaking. And I think that's the thing that bothers me the most, is that you'll walk away and you'll be like, well, that was kind of confusing, or the humor didn't play well, or this, that, or the other thing. And you ultimately walk away going, oh, well, that was pretty shit. It'll be a while before I watch my next foreign film. And I wish it wasn't like that. And I think some blame really needs to be put on the translation from the East and the West. I've gotten to the point where it's so bad for me, especially the stuff out of China. Like, I feel like we just get this completely, and this has nothing to do with the Chinese filmmakers. This doesn't even have anything to do with the Malaysian filmmakers for this one, Silat Warriors. But I feel like we see a completely, I don't want to say different plot, but just a completely different tone of movie by the time it reaches the States, and it just sucks, man. I don't know how I'm supposed to learn more about your culture, or at least a clearer depiction of it, if we keep changing it to this is what'll work for Americans. Time out. I need to take a sip. Oh, fuck's sake, man. Yeah, so and I wonder if that's what happened with this film, or no, man, this is my first time making a film, and I thought we did a pretty good job, and I would agree with you. I mean, as far as, like, if your game, Areel Abu Bakar, is to get into the action game, if that's the game that you want to play, in terms of a freshman project, Jesus, man, you knocked it out of the park. I mean, you killed it. Everything works how it's supposed to. Like, I do know the characters. I do know their motivations. And like I said, just bias shit that I wanted you to expand on them a little bit. Nothing more, nothing less. All biased, selfish reasons that I would nitpick the film. And you know, and two, like, I'm just not a car guy. So, you know, if you, the director, writer, you want to do car chases and, you know, kind of high energy action sequences like that, or high energy is not the right phrase, but an action sequence that costs significantly more than a hand-to-hand action sequence, well, then you're doing the right things. Just for me, I was never into it growing up, and into the whole car chase thing. I mean, it just, or using cars as a weapon or a means of, I don't know, you got to chase whoever, like, it just, whatever. That's kind of where I'm at with it. So if you look at it in terms of that, I think how I walked out of this film is not surprising, especially to anyone that's listened to this show before. I thought the story was decent enough to carry an hour and 40 minutes. I thought the hand-to-hand fight sequences, when they happened, were still better than most of the shit that we see in the States. I mean, I can't even think of anything in recent memory that compares if we're talking strictly hand-to-hand combat. So respect, man. And I don't think it's a waste of $15. I think you will feel like you got, if you're an action fan, but if you're a white woman who likes Twilight, you might want to steer clear of this. But if you're always on the verge, I'm sure somebody will find issue with that. But you know what? Sit that particular person down who I'm referring, that I'm envisioning in my head, and they're not going to like this movie. I would be shocked. Or I say best case scenario, the toxic white woman comes out and goes, I want to see Fatima beat more ass, and I would agree with you. I totally would, because I don't feel like we got to see her enough. Nobody really, with the exception of Ali. I felt we didn't open the can completely, and that's probably by design, for contextually, financially, you name it. I'm sure it was by design, but as an action film and for action lovers, there's a lot to like in this film. A whole lot to like, and I didn't think, I've watched a couple action films in the past 4 months. I feel like all I've watched is foreign action films. Like when I look at, I don't know, like the last 30 shows I've posted, most of them are foreign action films. Oh, for fuck's sake. But anyway, I think when you really break it down, it's better than most of the stuff you're going to see in the States in terms of who this project's audience is shooting for. And I think you'll sit back and you'll be like, that was fine. Like there's a few out of the last 30 that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. It wasn't fine. It wasn't fine. I hate bashing this movie because I'm sure it took a shitload of time, but 400 versus 1, Crazy Samurai, the one with the 82-minute one take, sword fight sequence amongst, 400 versus 1. Like Philip said on the show I did with him, Andy On, and Van Woo for Undercover Punch and Gun. If the action sequences aren't motivated by anything, or if you're just letting the camera run, people can go to YouTube and watch a fucking, a stunt reel or, whatever the case may be is, and it'll have the same effect. It's not pushing the story any further. All it is saying, look, we're athletic, and that falls flat on its face. You may have been able to get away with that in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, but those days are gone. The bar has been raised. Ip Man or The Raid, I mean, you name it. The bar's been raised, and I would say to the point of Ip Man and Raid, I think what they do so well is that the story does come first. Even, something as simplistic as The Raid, execution is everything, and how it's set up and delivered is nothing short of spectacular. I think it pays, it's credence to what I've been saying for a long time now, ladies and gentlemen, a very long time now. But anyway, well go USA's release of Silat Warriors. Deed of Death is available now. You can, I think it's only like $16 on Amazon. You can get it at Best Buy, Walmart, you name it. Silat Warriors, Deed of Death. First-time filmmaker Areel Bakar hitting us in the mouth with a pretty strong, stylized Malaysian action film. I'll be doing a giveaway on this one. Gonna have to pay attention. Ellis Cinema, Silat Warriors, Deed of Death, a.k.a. Geran. We gone. Fucking show ever, but the movie was aight.